The war had raged on for years, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Entire cities had crumbled to dust, fields once fertile now lay barren, and the air was thick with smoke and despair. Battles were fought relentlessly, yet neither side could claim victory. It was a stalemate of unimaginable proportions, a seemingly endless cycle of destruction that sapped the strength of all involved. Resources dwindled, morale plummeted, and the casualties mounted with each passing day. Millions were lost, countless others displaced, and yet the war dragged on, an unyielding testament to humanity's darkest tendencies. The desperation was palpable. People whispered tales of hopelessness as alliances faltered, and even the bravest warriors began to question their purpose. The front lines became graveyards, and the rear lines became places of despair. Every strategy, every weapon, every attempt to turn the tide seemed to dissolve into futility. And through it all, humanity remained silent, a passive observer to the chaos. Nations and individuals alike questioned this absence, speculating whether it was indifference, fear, or something deeper keeping humanity from the battlefield. But in the hearts of many, the hope for humanity's intervention was a flickering flame that refused to be extinguished. For years, humanity watched from the sidelines, bound by a mix of political and philosophical restraints. Leaders argued over the moral implications of joining the war. Some feared that entering the fray would only escalate the destruction, dragging humanity into a conflict they could never recover from. Others insisted on neutrality, claiming that their role was to mediate, not to fight. There was also the undeniable fear of retaliation. Humanity's resources were vast, but so were its vulnerabilities. To intervene would mean risking everything. Yet, as the years wore on, these arguments grew increasingly hollow. The world's cries for help became impossible to ignore, echoing in humanity's collective conscience. Still, they hesitated, torn between action and inaction. The question loomed large: what would it take for humanity to finally rise? That question was answered in a single, catastrophic moment. A sudden betrayal, a devastating attack, this was the breaking point. An unprovoked strike on what was thought to be neutral ground left millions dead in a matter of hours. The images of destruction flooded screens and minds, shaking even the most indifferent among humanity. Leaders convened in emergency meetings as the public's outrage boiled over. Protests erupted, voices demanding action where silence had once prevailed. The scale of the attack made it clear that neutrality was no longer an option. The cost of inaction had become unbearable. The emotional toll was immense. Survivors recounted tales of unimaginable loss, their voices trembling with grief and anger. The world, already fractured by years of war, seemed on the brink of total collapse. It was in this crucible of despair that humanity made its decision. They could no longer stand by and watch the world burn. The choice was clear, even if the path ahead was fraught with peril. Humanity would intervene, and the world would never be the same again. The decision to intervene was not made lightly. The devastation wrought by the recent attack had pushed humanity to its breaking point. Faced with mounting pressure from both within and beyond, leaders from every corner of the globe convened in an emergency summit. There was no more room for debates or delays. The world had waited long enough, and the time for action had come. With grim resolve, they unanimously agreed to unleash humanity's full might on the battlefield. Their strategy was as bold as it was calculated, a coordinated strike targeting critical enemy strongholds with precision and speed. It would be a show of overwhelming force designed to shatter the enemy's morale and cripple their capacity to retaliate. Every detail of the plan spoke of urgency and determination, a united front that promised to end years of bloodshed in mere hours. Humanity's entry into the war was nothing short of transformative. When their forces mobilized, it was as if an ancient, sleeping giant had awakened. They brought weapons and technology unlike anything the enemy had ever encountered. Advanced drones, faster than the eye could follow, swept through the skies, their silent hum a harbinger of devastation. Autonomous machines, bristling with precision weaponry, moved across the battlefield with chilling efficiency, guided by artificial intelligence systems that left no margin for error. Communications networks relayed commands instantaneously, allowing for unparalleled coordination across vast distances. It wasn't just the technology that made the difference, it was the tactics. Humanity's approach was unlike anything the enemy was prepared for. Traditional warfare had been a brutal grind of attrition, but humanity employed surgical strikes that dismantled the enemy's infrastructure piece by piece. Supply lines were severed in seconds, command centers went dark, and their most fortified positions fell without a single wasted movement. The psychological impact was profound. For the first time in years, the enemy faltered, their confidence replaced with fear. Even humanity's allies, weary from years of hopeless fighting, were rejuvenated by the sight of such power. The roar of machinery and the precision of every maneuver painted a vivid image of unstoppable might. The battle began at dawn. As the first light touched the horizon, humanity's forces surged forward with an intensity that left both allies and enemies stunned. The initial attack was a masterclass in shock and awe. Key strongholds, thought to be impenetrable, were reduced to rubble in minutes. Drones descended like swarms of silent predators, disabling defenses before they could fire a single shot. On the ground, mechanized units pushed forward, neutralizing enemy forces with unerring precision. For the first hour, the battlefield was chaos, the enemy scrambling to mount a defense that never materialized. By the second hour, it was clear that the tide had turned. The enemy's attempts to regroup were systematically dismantled. Their communications were severed, their supply lines obliterated, and their commanders left in disarray. Allies, inspired by the overwhelming show of force, rallied with renewed vigor. What had once seemed like an endless war now felt like a battle already won. The enemy began to falter, retreating in disorganized clusters as their once formidable ranks dissolved into chaos. The turning point came in the fourth hour. A coordinated strike on the enemy's primary command center broke their final line of resistance. Explosions lit up the sky as the once mighty fortress crumbled under humanity's relentless assault. With their leadership in disarray and their forces scattered, the enemy's will to fight evaporated. Surrender came swiftly. The fifth hour marked the final moments of the war as humanity delivered the decisive blow, securing victory and cementing their place as the ultimate force for change. When the dust settled, the battlefield was unrecognizable. Smoke still lingered in the air, mingling with the faint echoes of battle. But the mood had shifted. Relief washed over humanity's allies as the realization of victory sank in. After years of relentless fighting, the war was over, and the costliest stalemate in history had come to a dramatic end. Disbelief lingered in the eyes of those who had known only despair, their faces illuminated by a new hope. Humanity's intervention had not only ended the war but also reignited the belief that even in the darkest times, a swift and decisive act could change everything. The 5-hour victory, while decisive, was not without its cost. Lives were lost, even amidst the precision of humanity's intervention. Brave individuals who stood at the forefront of the operation paid the ultimate price, ensuring the success of the mission. Beyond the battlefield, the emotional and psychological toll lingered. Families mourned the fallen, and the images of destruction, though necessary to end the war, left scars on the collective conscience of humanity. The swift nature of the victory did not erase years of suffering, and the survivors, both allies and former enemies, faced the daunting task of rebuilding in a world forever changed by war. While the war ended quickly, its wounds would take much longer to heal. The end of the war marked the dawn of a new era. With humanity now an active player in global affairs, alliances were reshaped, and new partnerships emerged. Former enemies sought reconciliation, realizing that further conflict was futile against such overwhelming force. Borders that had once been contested were redrawn with mutual agreements, and reconstruction efforts brought nations together in ways previously thought impossible. For the defeated forces, surrender was both a relief and a reckoning. Leaders were held accountable for their actions, while their people faced the long road of recovery under new governance. Humanity's intervention also brought an unexpected boon, a shared sense of purpose among nations, fostering unprecedented cooperation in the aftermath of destruction. As the dust settled and the world began to heal, humanity's intervention became a symbol of both power and responsibility. It demonstrated the profound impact of decisive action and the importance of unity in the face of adversity. However, it also served as a reminder of the delicate balance required to wield such power wisely. The course of history had been altered in just 5 hours, proving that even the most entrenched conflicts could be overcome when the collective will to act is strong enough. Yet, humanity's leaders and people alike understood the weight of this lesson. With great power comes the duty to protect, to rebuild, and to ensure that such devastation is never repeated.